kick it off. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. And I know we still have a few folks that'll be trickling in. Welcome to our first Platica of the year. We are very, very excited to kick off the Platica with one of our very own, one of our leaders from our Arlington chapter. So we'll do an introduction in a bit, but just wanted to formally welcome you all. For those that may not know, my name is Cristal Retana Lule. I am your state chair this year and really excited to be able to welcome you all to our first Platica of the season. Before I turn it over to one of our co-hosts for today, I did want to go ahead and just take some time to talk about our conference. It's coming up. So I wanted to remind you all that we do have our state conference that is coming up on September 17th through the 20th. And excited to give you all or launch our theme for the year, which is Nuestra Historia, Nuestro Poder, honoring our legacy, empowering our future. This is our Ruby anniversary. We are going to be celebrating 40 years of impact as we were founded by a small group of women back in 1986. So we're excited to bring you all a lot of amazing sessions. We are going to be going back to our mission and really kind of just taking it a step further from the previous conference as well, which also really focused on our legacy and our impact as well. So we're going to be focusing on our mission to promote the advancement of women in personal, professional, and civic life, really focusing on the civics. And we decided because of the theme of this year, we kind of wanted to go along that same thing for Platicas, which is why we have this amazing speaker here today. So more to come on our state conference. We're going to be sending things to your chairs and your state reps to be able to start sending things out to our members. And also you will see information on our website that'll be updated later this week. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Erica Lopez, our immediate past chair, to introduce our speaker. So Erica, I will let you take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's doing great today. Trying to get the camera right here. My name is Erica Lopez. I am the immediate past chair of the Hispanic Women's Network of Texas, and I'm assisting with the Platicas Poderosas call this morning. So thank you guys for joining us. And this is our first Platica for 2026. And as you heard from Cristal, we have a lot of exciting opportunities happening this year with our 40th anniversary conference celebration. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping tips that I'd like to take care of first. Please ensure that your mics are muted. It'll be helpful to avoid any background noise in the background. We do have individuals monitoring the chat box, so don't hesitate to put in any questions, and then we will answer them at the end of Ashley's presentation. With that being said, it is my honor to introduce today our speaker, Ms. Ashley Rodriguez from our Arlington chapter. Ashley is an experienced healthcare leader and champion for community-led innovation. Over the past decade, she has redefined health across North America by focusing on the social determinants that shape our lives. As Senior Manager of Health Innovation Solutions at McKesson, Ashley leads strategic initiatives within the Global Impact Organization, including the McKesson Institute of Community and Health. Through her leadership in community health work, education, she is not just improving health systems, she is building them to be more inclusive, resilient, and human-centered. So with that, I will pass it over to our dynamic speaker this morning, Ms. Ashley Rodriguez.
Thank you, Erica. Good morning, everyone. I was told you can hear me well, so I'm going to assume that. I'm going to share my screen. Give me 2 seconds to pull that up. I hope everybody's getting their coffee, they're waking up, you've stretched, you're ready to engage with us. I know it's really cold. I don't know what this is about. I feel so terrible because I told a woman yesterday at a conference that the last of the cold weather was over for Texas. She was new here. I lied. That's on me. Okay. All right. So yes, our plática today is voice, power, and puntos en común. So Spanish is not my first language. Forgive me. I do want to give two disclaimers for this. One is I did leverage our tools. Okay. It's not cheating. And I used AI. It produced this lovely image that's with our branding. The colors are a little off, but we'll take it, right? I will say there may be some misspellings on some of the slides. I think I caught them all, but if you catch it, Give me some grace. I'm not illiterate. I just used AI, and sometimes it happens. All right, so we're going to get into it. This topic is definitely near and dear to my heart, and I do want to give a shout out to Cristal for encouraging me as the state advocacy chair for bringing this to HWNT, because we're in an increasingly polarized world, right? And so the ability to advocate for our communities requires so much more than just our passion. Okay. It requires a strategic approach to dialogue. And this 1 hour, well, it's not an hour, but this 30-40 minute conversation is really designed specifically for us as Latina leaders and advocates who want to bridge the divide without compromising our values and do it in a respectful way. So, we're going to explore how to navigate difficult conversation in civic or civil spaces, transform tension into progress, and use our unique cultural assets like personalismo and storytelling to influence policy and public opinion. Whether you're engaging with a local school board, your neighbor, a state legislator, or community-based organizations that you work with, or even individuals at work. Hopefully, this how-to for making your voice heard and your message stick, and again, keeping your values and being respectful. Hopefully, all of this will help you in those conversations. All right. So, of course, we've already said welcome to you all, but I do feel, and I have felt this way since I joined HWNT, that you are comadres with me. So, as Latina advocates, we're not just participants, right? We are essential architects of progress. And civil discourse really is a tool that's in our toolbox. And although I'm going to define all of this, I do want to ask you all, just in general, even if you're not quite sure what it means just yet, have you participated in civil discourse before? And you can put a thumbs up, you can put it in the chat, whatever in between. I just want to get a sense of where we are with our participants today. And while you're doing that, I just want to say that effective civil discourse is marked by constructive, respectful exchange. It's not really winning a debate, okay? And if you've engaged, personally, if you've engaged effectively, when the conversation results in a deeper understanding of multiple perspectives, common ground, and that relationships are maintained or strengthened in spite of our differences. Okay. So I'm not going to spend time like really reading the objectives for you. You can see them here on the screen, but I do want to say that one of the key things that I hope you get from this as somebody that has been teaching communities for many, many years, definitely over a decade, even before it was formalized, is really understanding the innate powers that we have as Latinas. A lot of that is our storytelling. A lot of that is our relationship building. So I just want you to keep that in mind. And you'll see these again at the end, and I'll definitely ask you all if you feel like these objectives were met. Okay. So in addition to objectives, I just want you to get a better sense of what we're really covering. So I'm going to set a foundation around civic or civil discourse and our Latina advantage. You are going to get an essential toolkit. We are going to share these slides out with you as well. So if you're wondering, yes, you will get a copy of it. I'm more than happy. I love to share freely. We'll send you out a PDF version post-webinar. But that toolkit is going to have all of these key things I'm going to walk you through, the things we should remember, the things we should practice. We'll go through some real world scenarios. I also want to hear from you if we have time, and then we should wrap up with Q&A. All right, so defining discourse. I know that several of you already know what this means, but it's not the website that the kids use these days in high school and college, okay? Before that existed, discourse in simple terms is really just an exchange of ideas through conversation and dialogue. A lot of people tend to think of it as an argument or something negative, but that's not true. And I like to break this down even further, right? So this little table that AI helped me put together, I'm pretty sure it's all spelled correctly, is let's look at it as a space. And so this space is an environment where everyone feels heard, respected. And then there's a focus in that space, and it's either on a particular context, a discipline, or a goal. Sometimes that goal is just sharing information. I feel like 9 times out of 10, as a Latina advocate and leader, that's what I'm doing is I'm just trying to share information, right? And it's not always met with the most positive, and like my positive intent gets missed biased, right? And that can happen. And then there's also some friction in this space, just naturally. Even if that friction is not necessarily negative, it can come from misunderstandings, miscommunications, or just different cultural perspectives, right? So we want to think of that friction as an opportunity to learn. We can learn from conflicts, we can learn from disagreements, or just the various perspectives that are shared in this space. And then ultimately, discourse should lead into a result, whether it's an action. That action can be this conversation. Uh, thank you for muting people. Okay. Did we solve it? Okay, cool. I'm not used to that either. I'm used to everybody being muted forever. Okay. And that, sometimes there's a next step in that discourse. And sometimes that next step is I'm going to bow out of this conversation, and that's enough of that. And we'll talk about that too, and what that looks like, and how to do it in a respectful way that doesn't burn the bridge or jeopardize that relationship. Okay. I also want to level set just by diving in on these terms. So you've heard me say civil and civic, and sometimes they are used in ways that are distinct from each other, and there's other varied meanings. But the phrase civic discourse specifically is really around reasoned discussions of civic issues that incorporates multiple perspectives. And you can also think of it as like the what is discussed, okay? Civil discourse has been used to refer the same concept, but with an emphasis on showing respect or facilitating a conversation who are going to have, or there's an assumption that they will have different opinions. And there's been a recent shift away from the use of civil because it tends to imply that it's only around uh, uh sorry discourse like disrespectfully. It's like this negative connotation that nobody really asked for, even though actually respect is built into the definition. But you can think of civil as how things are discussed. But so these will be used interchangeably throughout the day. They're interchanged on the slides for both purposes. But I will say, oops, didn't mean to go ahead too fast. I will say that typically when we think of either or, whether it's, and I would argue that they are the same definition, right? Whether we're in a public space, community, we're talking, everything's political, right? And not just because of the space that we're in, but by nature, because everything impacts policy and things like that. So, okay, without further ado, before I get too far off my soapbox, we want to come from the lens, though, that we are being, equitable and we are building relationships. And that's really the bottom line. So this civic discourse should be always viewed as a productive dialogue, really aimed at understanding, problem solving, and collective action. It's not just winning an argument. It's not just having, your message get across only. It really is supposed to be shared. It's shared values, and it should be focused on future solutions. And all of these really make up this like metaphorical bridge, if you will, which we'll continue to build upon today. So, having said that, do you know what tools have been used to master civil discourse, or do you have your own tools? And I'm going to pull up the chat actually, so I can see it. Ooh, there we go. Just want to see what people are saying. Oh, nothing yet, and that's okay. If you're still thinking about it, the good news is I will have tools for you today. So that's okay. And if you're just waking up, I get that too. It's Saturday morning, girl. All right. So that having been said, I will jump into it. Again, the end goal of civic or civil discourse is to find a greater understanding, build on that common ground on issues that are understood through those diverse perspectives and viewpoints. And that's not easy, right? Like, let's just be honest. Just in general, regardless of if we're talking about polarized spaces or not, it can be uncomfortable even sometimes to talk to family, right? Because we have differing opinions, we have different ways of seeing the world. I know that I, as an elder millennial, yes, I said it, I know I look good, have a hard time sometimes discussing with my boomer family, my, my tias, my mom sometimes, because we have a very different upbringing, a very different understanding of the world. I have more tools than they do, right? I have more access to information and I know how to use it because I grew up, not only programming the VCR, but also doing dial-up. So all of those things changes our perspectives, right? So all of that aside, this can unfold in any context around any discipline, and the process of discourse has already been outlined, right? But let's talk about some kind of like rules or norms that and this is not an all-inclusive list, right? But we always want, and I know again, sometimes other generations struggle with what boundaries really means and it gets confused. And I'll say I've even seen it in my own generation. There are times when I think people think that boundaries means control, and it doesn't. It means you deciding what is acceptable for you. But the thing that I think often gets missed, and it took me a long time to build this too, is you have to build up your own self-awareness. Reflection is hard. Being honest about yourself, your own biases, your own assumptions, the things that maybe you've never fully unpacked and thought, why do I think like that? Is that because that's how I was raised, or is that based on my experience? Or do I lack an experience at all? Do I really know about this topic or these people or this situation? 9 times out of 10, we don't want to have those uncomfortable conversations with ourselves because it's hard. Okay. But that is the work that has to be done. And then also, it goes without saying, yes, we know that we should listen to understand and not only to respond. But I don't know if you're like me, I'm a little neurospicy, and it is really hard for me to sit there when I have something to say too. But I'm working on it. I'm working on saying, you know what? I can take a quick note and then I want to focus in on what this person is saying. I really want to hear them. I want to know if I can hear their intent. I want to know if I can set aside, my gut, my knee-jerk reaction to be like, no, that's not right. I don't like that. It's just human nature. It's human nature to want to be heard and to do it in a way that you also feel like you're there, right? But that's not going to help us. And so, also coming from a place of curiosity, this is something I've even had to work in corporate, or I've had to work on myself, specifically in corporate spaces. Even when I know the answer, which again, as a neurospicy Latina who's very opinionated and very well informed, it's hard to sit back and be like, I already know that, so let's move on. That's not how you have a dialogue, right? Even if you are the leader, I have been in a space where I am the subject matter expert. I am leading the meeting. I am leading the project. I know all the things, right? I know we're taught not to do that, but it's just facts. I still need to ask curious questions to bring other people in. They already know I'm the subject matter expert, or maybe they don't. But me asking questions allows them to have input, even when they probably don't. There are so many times where even my leader's like, you know what, be sure to ask them this. And I'm like, for what? She's like, to level set, to hear what their opinions are, and to see what it is that is actually of genuine interest to them. They may say one thing, but you may uncover something else. And I'm like, that is so genius. I don't know what I've been doing for the last decade plus, but also be willing to take breaks. If you're starting to have that conversation breakdown or you feel like it's not going anywhere, then take a break and say, you know what? I feel like we've entered a point today where that's as far as we're going to get. Let's pick this back up another time, right? Schedule that call, say, let's talk about it tomorrow. And this works in marriage too, but that's a conversation for another time. Also, you want to acknowledge that the dialogue can be uncomfortable. And it's good to say it up front. It's good to remind, and it's good to say to people, hey, listen, I know we're all getting in our feels. Let's take a stretch break, let's remind ourselves we can do hard things. Whatever you need to do, whatever works for you and for that other individual or group that you are talking with. All right, so this is a list of common key indicators that effective civic or civil discourse has occurred. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this either because you're going to get it, but I will say, again, that openness to inquiry, curious questions, the use of I statements. What does that mean? I'll briefly focus on that instead of saying like, hey, you or this group has a tendency to do blah, blah, blah. You should keep it on you. The focus is on you and your opinions, right? So I feel blah, blah, blah. I think blah, blah, blah. That's the difference. And it really does, it is a game changer in conversations and your own self-regulation. If you feel yourself getting upset, if you feel yourself being triggered, you have to find, this is also part of that self-reflection, identify your triggers, figure out what that looks like, and then figure out a way to mitigate it. There are so many silly things you can do, and I know this sounds a little nuts, but again, as somebody who's neurospicy, if I have a hard time spiraling, sour candy was recommended to me by my neuropsychologist. It works in these spaces too. Pop a piece of sour candy in your mouth, it triggers your brain to get out of that situation immediately. Same with if you have a fidget. I know, I said what I said, but they're on pins now, so we can be a little more discreet. And or again, just movement. So just moving your body. So I will do this. Even when I'm online in Teams, I will readjust my chair to change my positioning. That's my self-regulation. There's a bunch out there. You can, YouTube it. And even though it's not on here, there are these four C's. It may have been on another slide, but the four C's to remember are being curious, being charitable with your time, with your energy, being conscientious at the same time, and being constructive. All right. So, what are some unique barriers that Latinas face in civic spaces? This is one where I do need to hear from you in the chat. Please, please, please don't act like you don't know. We all feel it. We all know. What are, thank you that you love neurospicy. Yeah, I'm embracing it because I have no choice. And actually, the disclaimers help so that people understand where I'm coming from. What are some unique barriers that Latinas face in civic spaces? Rachel, don't make you unmute and share. Somebody put it into the chat. We all know. This is a not just a safe space. This is a courageous space. Yes, representation. Thank you, Crystal. You see, you guys know. What else? Imposter syndrome. Girl, who are you telling? We're going to talk about that too. Not having others that look like me or are like me or feel like me. Yes, just cultural competency. Yes, yes, yes. See, you all know. You all know. Thank you. Thank you for waking up. I appreciate it. Yeah, feeling adequate or inadequate or the imposter syndrome. Past life. That's deep, Anastasia. Okay, we'll have another conversation. Yeah, not feeling good enough. Absolutely. And we don't feel good enough oftentimes because there's nobody else like us there, or we don't have allies, or we just don't know what we don't know, right? So, yes, thank you all so much for engaging in that. And it's going to fall into like these categories I'm going to pull up. Sometimes it can be under the category of intersectionality and discrimination. Okay. Latinas often encounter compounded discrimination based on being both female and Latina, including higher rates of what most people view as, but also, let's just be honest, even in the state of Texas, Latinos have a higher rate of poverty and limited access to healthcare and education. That's just facts. That's not me. Also, fear. Okay, and if we're talking about our immigration families, which I have it in my family too, fear of immigration enforcement, right? Particularly in mixed status families. And also, just even let's go beyond that and just say the radicalized perceptions of foreignness or other, right? That can discourage participation. And all of this comes directly from the National Institutes of Health. This does not come from me. um Cultural and gender roles, right? So traditional gender roles, where I'm talking about machismo, right? So like this can restrict women's public participation, and sometimes it demands that we prioritize our household duties over civic duties, right? How many of you that are mothers will hear, well, who's keeping the kids? Well, girl, if I'm married, the other one, the partner. And no, it's not, oh, he's babysitting. You don't babysit your own kids. I don't babysit my kids. What are we talking about, right? Um, and also language and information gaps. And I'm not even just strictly talking about bilingual services, which are often lacking,
I
or
finally
Spanish
got in.
language. Thank you for that. I'm also talking about just look at where we're at in terms of, in Texas, thankfully, a lot of things are bilingual, a lot of things are translated. But think about those areas where we're also just not speaking the same language because we have different lived experiences, okay? And then economic barriers. We are experiencing higher rates of unemployment. And that's just across the board for Latinos. A lot of times too, in flexible hours, or we're in areas where there lacks childcare, right? And then if we're talking about, also these spaces where we do have mixed status families, listen, let's be honest about this. There is a lot of wage theft for Latinos. We're also seeing where people are doing, really hard physical labor and then being arrested so that that person doesn't have to pay the bill. That's happening all over the US, and it's terrible. And so this can also hamper our engagement. And that comes from the Brookings Institute. Again, I didn't come up with this. And of course, you all hit the nail on the head. And this wasn't last intentionally. It was actually last on the list that I pulled. But I like to close it out here because we already know this, an underrepresentation and a lack of role models. It's not that they don't exist, it's that we don't always see them in all the spaces all the time. I don't know about y'all, but have you ever worked in a space where there's just like the one Latino leader that is representing all the Latinos for that organization all the time? And yeah, I'm talking about employers. So this scarcity and more of a scarcity of even Latina leaders in public offices and, the C-suite executives, all of these things reduces the incentive and that perceived feasibility of engaging in these spaces. But the good news is we're going to build some skills so that none of that matters, okay? So, how do you personally turn a heated debate into a productive solution? If you have some tips and tools, things that you use, plug it into the chat. And if you don't, that's okay. I'm going to build it with you. But just curious if you have a tool where you have been in a heated debate and have been able to turn it into a productive solution. I'll tell you right now, I have struggled with this for most of my life, mostly because I'm neurospicy, not because I'm combative. It's because when something is unjust, I have to speak up, and I haven't always done it the best way. I've had to learn over time, right? And so, listen, I'm still learning. We're all learning and growing all the time. And if you're not, well, then you probably don't have a pulse. And I would say that's not true. So we can rely on our roots as Latinas. We can use our inherent cultural toolkit. And this includes things that we use every day that you probably don't even acknowledge. I promise you, you're going to be like, wait, okay, this is connecting. So that personalismo, the power of building warm, caring, and trusting personal relationships and trust, we all do this naturally. It applies in this space as well. It doesn't change just because it's a civil engagement. Okay. And the way that we build comunidad. So through our collective strength and our shared responsibility, we can dig there too. We know who we can call on for support. And if we don't, we often figure it out, right? We are all filling that space. What organizations, what leaders can help us with this. Who in my personal board of directors, who my comadres can help me with this communication, or who can help me build a roadmap so that this discussion does not get ugly or doesn't come across as this, right? We're doing it already, especially within HWNT. I promise you, I rely so heavily on you ladies, probably a little too heavily, but I float a lot of things past my fellow HWNT leaders. I'm talking personal, professional, and everything in between. I'm like, hey, will you take a look at this really quick? Will you tell me what I'm missing? Hey, I'm gonna go into this space. This is the situation. This is the leader. Do you have some tips for me? We're doing this all the time already, right? And then also storytelling. Again, we're inherently great storytellers. I don't know about you, but I come from a long line of people that love to just, we're chismosas, okay? I come from a long line of chismosas, but we're great storytellers, okay? We're a great storyteller. And so contrary to popular belief, we can also use that skill to humanize data, okay? Instead of showing somebody a chart or talking about the statistics, I'm not going to tell you, some stat like, oh, 75% of us are underpaid. I'm going to be like, hey, listen, my cousin is experiencing this. The guy down the street that this person in church, right? We're going to make it humanized and we're going to connect on that emotional level. And we're already great at that. Let's be honest. And then when we talk about resilience and passion, it's a common misconception that resilience is like forged out of fire or that it's a trauma thing. That's not true. Resilience can also be built in positive situations. So not only are we known for this, right? We're all passionate Latinas, but we have an unwavering commitment to our causas. We do. It doesn't matter what the cause is. It doesn't matter who it's for. And we need to utilize that here in this space. So because we excel at storytelling, these prompts can help to frame it in an advocacy mindset, okay? That we statement, which we already have. I already talked about the first one, so that's why I'm jumping to the second. We always frame the issue with a collective concern. And that can look like, hey, when we invest in or we put our time in bilingual programs, we're not just helping one group, we're preparing the entire city's workforce, right? Or we're supporting the global market. It goes so beyond just us. And same with a future focus. So a future focus statement can look like this. I have the example there, but I think it's more like just remembering to move the conversation beyond the past. And I often say to people, listen, I'm never going to deny the past. We always have to understand our historical context, but I'm ready to not only be present, but I want to see what's next. You know what I mean? And so I think that that's a key thing that a lot of us do too. And then also, listen, when I talk about our lived experience as Latina leaders, we need to remember our expertise statement, right? If you're a mother, yeah, you're going to say, hey, as a mother, I often see what data misses, right? Or as a Latina, yeah, I know all of these stats, but there's so many other things. Like there's our strengths and there's this, right? So remember that we are expertise as well. We are subject matter experts. Okay, so beyond having a seat beyond having a seat at the table, can somebody mute them? Thank you. One way we can go beyond that, having the seat, I often say, for the record, I don't need a seat at the table because as a Latina leader, I built that table. I'm already there. You just don't recognize it, and that's its own thing. And I have literally said this, by the way. I'll just tell you briefly. I was in a space, it was actually for community health workers and promotoras. And this older white gentleman was going on and on, like, we're trying to find a seat at the table, a seat at the table. I don't know why CHWs don't have a seat at the table. And he went on and on and on and on. And then when it was Q&A, I raised my hand. I was like, yeah, you in the front. I said, hey, listen, I understand that you think you're trying to do something for us, but we don't need you to get us a seat at the table. We built it, dude. The workforce built it. It was here long before you discovered this workforce. And he was astounded, right? I got claps. People were like, because it's true. And I feel that way as a Latina too. I've been told in corporate spaces too, like, I just don't understand why, Latinas aren't more, they don't apply for these leadership roles and, why they're not building their leaders. I'm like, oh, we're leaders, just not in a way that you recognize. So that's its own thing. So addressing that implicit bias and microaggressions. We're going to talk about that more on the next slide. And then combating that angry or that passionate Latina. No, 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 no. I just know what I know. And ensuring that our voices are heard and we're not just present, right? And then we'll also talk a little bit more about managing our emotional labor. Hopefully, I have enough time. Okay, so we all hear microaggressions all the time. We know that they're harmful. We know that they disrupt the moment, and we know that they can be particularly for BIPOC individuals. And so we always need to work to make the invisible visible. That provides that we increase awareness of the perpetrators or the situation. And the one way that we can disarm microaggression is by micro interventions, okay? And that means that, listen, if somebody is saying something, you get to speak up and say, what did you mean by that? Or I don't think you realize how that came across. And if they still want to dig in, right, it's like, oh, I don't agree with that at all. And also letting them know that that person may have not meant harm, but firmly explain why it is negative. Okay. It's like, hey, listen, you may not realize it, or I'm sure your intention was positive, but let me walk you through what's wrong with what you just did. Okay. And that's okay. And also, listen, we've got to have a better bystander intervention. We need to be allies for anyone. We need to be able to speak up for anyone and validate and help them remove any kind of burden. Okay. And that, by the way, comes from the Harvard Business Review. So it's applicable in workspaces as well. So, part of what I like to refer to as the Latina advocacy and empowerment movement that is happening all over the world right now in real time is that we are all actively working to validate lived experiences. Now, also in my CHW side and the promotora side, lived experience is everything. We always say there's nothing about us without us. Like, don't speak on our behalf. We are the ones with lived experiences. This is how we have this role. But it's the same thing we're in for Latina people. Okay. So we don't need to minimize or justify anything. And then also, and yes, everyone's going to get a copy of the PowerPoint. Also, that we're promoting representation. I think that HWNT does a phenomenal job of this, not just with our awards, not just with, allowing these spaces where we're leading our own conferences, but just in general. We are constantly promoting our comadres in HWNT. And I love that. And I think that's what attracted me to the organization very early on. With all my heart, I mean that. But we're also constantly educating and raising awareness all the time, right? And a lot of times it's very specific and even the subtlety of forms of racism that we are experiencing, right? And we're creating safe spaces whether we realize it or not. This is also what I would consider beyond a safe space. This is a courageous space for us right now, and HWNT provides that as well. And then us as Latinas, we need to do more to support or create more structured policies that are addressing these microaggressions in workplaces, in schools where our kids are growing up, in civic and community spaces where we are all want to engage. And that's all I'll say about that. I'll save that for another time. Okay, so the power of personalismo and building the bridge really means that before diving into a data or a demand or insisting that people listen to us, we really have to establish that human connection, right? In these civic and civil spaces. And by the way, being professional doesn't mean we have to be cold, doesn't mean that we can't, you know, bring that personal lens, doesn't mean we can't disclose things about ourselves. We have inherent people, or as people like to call it in the corporate world, soft skills. And as Latinas, we often don't even realize that we're applying this tried and true strategy. I know, I hope for you that that's like a, it is a strategy and it works in all spaces. We often share about our family. We share about our views on safety. We always talk about the future of our children and our neighbors and our comunidad. And we like to bring it all to our values, right? So, one way we can do this is even just simply making statements, really simple statements. Again, this is a great example of an I statement. I feel the same way about our community. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about this so I can better understand your concerns. How simple is that? It's so simple. This could be applicable to just any situation, right? I encourage you to take this, try it out, use it. I promise you, it even works in the casa. Okay. So, I also, I know I'm almost at time. I think I only have a few more slides. Um, you're going to get a copy of this, but this feel, felt, found pivot. Okay. So when you're in a conflicting situation, it has definitely turned into conflict, is relying on that I feel statement or others have felt or what we have found. Okay, so you're going to get a copy of this as a reminder. And this is a cheat sheet that you're going to use. So if you're interrupted, this is an example of what you can do to address that. When you've been met with a bias or stereotype in real time, how to call it out. And then when a topic is kind of veering off course and it really doesn't have anything to do with what you're trying to get through. And then last but not least, when there's a really hard disagreement. Okay, so you're going to get that. So I also want to take a moment just to define disrespect. If someone is saying something to you that you think is disrespectful, even if you're not 100% sure, but let's be honest, we know, it's important to be open about that disapproval. If no one else says anything on your behalf, or even if the majority around you, which often happens, disagree with what's been said or done, or they didn't see it that way, I'm going to give you an example. I was in a meeting. There was somebody that said, well, when it comes to the way that we work with illegals, nobody caught it, but I did. After the meeting, I said to my team and my boss at the time, so why would this leader use the term illegals when what he means is immigrants? And she was like, oh, I didn't catch that. And the rest of the team was like, yeah, I wasn't focused on that. Anyway, I want to talk about this. Everyone disregarded me. I waited. I let them talk about whatever they wanted. So at the end, I go, so back to what I was saying. It's concerning for me, and here's why. They felt uncomfortable. They didn't like it. And so I ended it with, I know this is just discomforting for you. I'm not saying I don't dislike this person. I'm not saying this person isn't respectful. I'm letting you know that it's inappropriate language. And I hope that somebody will speak to him because I don't want to have to do it. And you know what? That's all that it was need to be said. That's okay. So we need to make sure that this kind of behavior is called out, okay? So you're going to get this too about how you're defining disrespect, like how to define disrespect. Make sure that you understand, what all of this looks like. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because also time. I've kind of got off a little off of my soapbox today. All right. So I also like to say I'm calling in. One time I was in a meeting and my boss said, and this is recent actually, she said, "Hey, thanks Ashley for calling me out." I said, "Oh, I don't want to correct you, but I feel like I'm calling you in." And she was like, "Oh, I like that." And I was like, "Exactly." Because calling out means like I'm pointing my finger at you, but calling you in means I want to keep this relationship. I'm just letting you know that I'm not okay with that, right? And I think it's acceptable. I think it's always acceptable to say, "Hey, that's inappropriate." Now, that person doesn't have to change anything. They can disregard, but you did your due diligence by calling them in. Okay. So, what else does calling in look like? Well, it's not just recognizing disrespect and it's not just, letting them know like those things. It's also asking yourself, do I want to be in community with this person? Because if the answer is no, yeah, I need to do it. That's fine too. You can move on, right? Sometimes we're like, not today. Do I value this relationship? Do I believe that they intended no harm? Again, with the one I just shared with you with the illegals, I know they didn't intend any harm, but I need them to be aware of their vocabulary. They're a high level leader. That's not okay. So we also want to consider the values and see if there's any common ground, right? With that individual, I do respect them. I respect their opinion. I respect everything that they share. And so I like to think that we have a mutual common ground of respect. Again, they just needed to be taught better. That's all. And then we have to name any observed disrespectful behavior or action. And we have to be able to contextualize it. So again, with me, I was like, okay, it was a misstep. You guys didn't see it, you didn't hear it. That's fine. I did. So I'm gonna call it in. And I hope that somebody else can talk to them about it because I don't want it to come across as combative from me. That was also a strategy that I employed, right? And remember, this is about a conversation. It's not a lecture. It's not a pointing the finger. It's calling you in. I love that you love it, Jeanette. Okay, yes, I did it. Okay. Well, there's like two more slides, but whatever. So to close out a conversation, we do call this a closing, right? You want to leave it with a clear next step. Ideally, it's like, hey, thank you for the dialogue. I want to ensure this, let's talk in 2 weeks. But sometimes the closing is, you know what? We're not going to get anywhere with this. Thank you for your time. That's fine, because maybe you were already dissecting I don't value this relationship. I don't want to keep them in my circle. I'm okay with just cutting it here. And that's okay too. So, quick points about civic discourse, and then we'll get to questions. Even though we easily build trust, and we often, unfortunately, serve at the peacemakers in our friends groups, in our families, in the workplace. I mean, Latinas are known for this, let's be honest. It doesn't mean that we have to allow ourselves to be disrespected or mistreated. Ultimately, we can engage in civic discourse on our own terms, okay? And that's what I want to leave you with. Again, you're all going to get a copy of this. So now I'll just see if there's any questions. And I'm assuming we allow people to unmute and or you can read out any. I haven't seen any in the chat. I've been kind of following along. So
No, but
anyone?
there's been a lot of great supportive words here, Ashley. This has
Oh, I
been this has
love
been
that.
amazing.
I love that. Hey, listen, we can talk about, I can also pull up anything if you want. I'm very easy, but I'll just look and see if anything's come up. I hope that you all enjoyed this. I'm very passionate about this topic. Again, thank you, Cristal, as the state advocacy chair for allowing me to kick off 2026 with this Platica. I feel so honored to really share my knowledge base, the way that I like to support community and the way that I like to advocate for other Latinas. And I will just stop sharing and see if anyone wants to come off mute, wants to engage. I love this, Aide. You work in a male-dominated industry, and these nuggets are great reminders. Girl, who you telling? Same. And let's be honest, a lot of us work in white male-dominated spaces, and that can be even more challenging. It gets more compounded, right? Okay, great. Hey, listen, if there's not any questions, that's fine. I think sometimes that happens. It's a lot to digest. It's a Saturday morning.
I
Thank
think
you so much,
everybody's
Gina.
taking it in and everybody's trying to
Yeah,
remember like these tough conversations because we don't just have them at work, we have them at home, we have them just like in regular conversations and to try to recognize it, acknowledge it, and then, how to move forward productively. It's definitely something that takes some practice to recognize all the things, the points that you tapped on. Like while you're talking, I can just try to remember a circumstance, a conversation, something where now I'm thinking I could have done this better. I should do this differently. This could have been more productive. Or, like you said, it's okay to just cut off a conversation respectfully and agree to disagree and that be it. That was great.
1,000%. Yeah, hey, listen, if we just want to wrap it up, that's okay too. I think I
Okay.
can turn it over to you all. Thank you all so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us this morning. I know it's not easy.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Ashley. We appreciate it. Ladies, I forgot to mention, but as per tradition for our platicas, if you have your coffee mugs, if you can hold them up for us right now, and Rachel, our state chair-elect, will be selecting the best coffee, and you'll be receiving coffee mug, and you'll be receiving a $10 Starbucks gift card. So you can turn your cameras on if you have your beautiful mugs and give us a look.
I feel like they
Let's
probably
see.
are like me and they're like, I'm not camera ready. And that's okay too. Oh, see, I knew it. Somebody's like, I got bedhead, girl. I have lagonias and I'm not turning on my camera. I get it. Listen, I have them too, but the glasses hide it. Look at Erica. That's
Here we go,
cute.
Erica.
Okay. Is Jeanette gonna do it too?
Jeanette, do you have yours?
Well, it's a company brand one, so it's not a pretty one, but what are my chances of winning are high.
I don't know. I feel like Erica is straight up one.
Yeah. Erica's looks good. I like it. Erica from San Antonio.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Well, then, Erica's congratulations. Send Cristal an email to her Stay Chair email, and she will be issuing you a $10 Starbucks gift card. Well, thank you, ladies, so much. Once again, thank you, Ashley, for providing such an insightful conversation and information. We do have a YouTube channel for HWNT, and this presentation will be uploaded to our YouTube channel as well. So keep a lookout for that. And I believe Cristal and Rachel have a list of everybody who signed in through, registered through Zoom, should I say, so they can also email you out a copy of the presentation. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, a beautiful Saturday morning, and stay safe. And don't forget to be on the lookout for all of our exciting conference information coming soon.
Thank
Goodbye.
you, ladies.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.